Some Hollywood celebrities have lived in haunted houses and shared their terrifying experiences. They describe seeing ghosts, hearing strange noises, and feeling an eerie presence. Doors slam, lights flicker, and shadows move on their own. These stars say their beautiful homes turned into scary places filled with unexplainable, ghostly activity. Now we discuss the haunted houses and incidents of Hollywood celebrities. Number 1. Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus once stayed in a beautiful apartment in London while on tour, but what seemed like a dream home quickly turned into a nightmare. She and her younger sister, Noah, experienced several terrifying events that made them believe the place was haunted. One of the scariest moments happened when Noah was taking a shower. Suddenly, she screamed. Miley rushed in and found her sister frozen in fear. Noah said she saw a ghostly little boy standing behind her in the mirror. But when Miley looked, no one was there. On the same day, something even stranger happened. While Noah was still in the shower, the water suddenly turned boiling hot without her touching the tap. Miley checked everything, but nothing seemed broken. It was as if something invisible had done it on purpose. That wasn't the only creepy thing. Almost every night, they would hear loud footsteps in the hallway. But whenever they checked, no one was there, and the hallway was empty. One night, while Miley was lying in bed, she heard the kettle in the kitchen start boiling by itself. When she went to look, no one had touched it. The lights would also flicker on and off, and small objects like cups and keys would move or fall without explanation. Later, Miley found out that the apartment used to be an old bakery, and according to locals, the baker's young son had died there in a tragic gas accident. Many believed his ghost still haunted the place, especially the upper floor where Miley stayed. After all these frightening events, Miley said she couldn't stay there anymore and moved out, saying she never felt truly safe in that home. Number 2. Lucy Hale. Lucy Hale, best known for her role in Pretty Little Liars, has openly talked about strange and creepy things happening in her home. She believes her house is haunted and has shared several chilling stories. One of the scariest things she experienced was hearing her alarm go off for no reason in the middle of the night. It wasn't set, and no one was near it, but it still started ringing loudly, waking her up in fear. She has also heard footsteps when she was completely alone. Sometimes she'd be in her bedroom and hear someone walking in the hallway, but when she checked, no one was there. The sounds were clear and heavy, like someone pacing back and forth. It made her feel like someone was watching her, even though no one was around. Lights in her house also turn on and off by themselves. Lucy said that she would turn off a light, leave the room, and come back minutes later to find it turned on again. She once came home to find every single light on in the house, even though she remembered clearly turning them all off. Another creepy moment was when her coffee machine started working on its own. It suddenly turned on and started making coffee when no one had touched it. She's also noticed things being moved around. Keys, books, and small objects don't stay where she left them. One time, Lucy even called a friend to come over because she was so scared. She felt an icy cold spot in her hallway and refused to sleep alone that night. Despite being frightened, Lucy has joked about having a friendly ghost, but deep down, she admits it still gives her the chills to this day. Number 3. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has never publicly confirmed her home is haunted, but over the years, fans and sources close to her have shared eerie stories connected to places she's lived, especially her older properties. One strange event happened in her Rhode Island mansion, where guests reported hearing a piano playing softly at night, even though no one was near it. The sounds would stop the moment someone walked into the room. Another unsettling incident involved a locked door in the house that would randomly open by itself. Taylor had it checked multiple times, but nothing was ever found to be wrong. It would swing open slowly, always at night, and always around the same time. In her Nashville home, Taylor once mentioned that she often heard whispering in one particular room. The whispers were soft and fast, like a conversation that she could never understand. Even after checking the room, there was never anyone there. One evening, Taylor was writing lyrics when she suddenly felt a cold breeze pass through her, even though all the windows were shut. The lights flickered, and her dog began barking at an empty corner of the room, refusing to calm down. Another spooky event happened when she saw an outline of a person standing at the end of a hallway. Thinking it was a staff member, she called out, but the figure vanished before her eyes. She also once woke up to find her record player spinning without being turned on, playing static sounds like a broken broadcast. Finally, during a stay at an older guest house on her property, Taylor claimed she heard someone humming an old lullaby upstairs, even though no one else was staying there. That night, she refused to sleep alone and kept the lights on until morning. Number 4. Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet has always kept much of her private life quiet, but close sources and past interviews have revealed some strange and spooky happenings in one of her former countryside homes in England. One of the first incidents occurred when she heard loud knocking at her front door late at night. When she went to open it, no one was there. The knocking continued for several nights at the same time, always around 3 a.m., and always with no one outside. Another eerie experience happened when Kate was reading in her study. She suddenly felt a cold breeze pass through her, even though all the windows were closed. Her candle flickered wildly, then went out by itself, leaving the room dark and strangely quiet. One day, while walking past the staircase, she noticed a shadow figure at the top landing. It was tall and still, and vanished the moment she looked directly at it. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but her daughter later mentioned seeing the same figure on a different day. Her dog would often growl at an empty corner in the living room, refusing to enter that area. Sometimes the dog would bark continuously at nothing and hide under furniture, clearly frightened. Kate also experienced a strange incident in the kitchen. The radio turned on by itself and played an old, static-filled opera tune. It wasn't tuned to any known station, and the device wasn't even plugged in. One night, a picture frame flew off the wall and landed far across the room. No one was near it, and there were no vibrations or wind. The final straw was when she heard a whisper behind her while brushing her teeth. When she turned, the room was empty. She moved out months later. Number 5. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise has lived in many grand homes, but one particular mansion he owned in the hills of Los Angeles was the setting for several unsettling events. It began with doors opening and closing by themselves. At first, he blamed drafts, but the doors moved even when the windows were shut and the air was still. It became so frequent that staff began to avoid certain rooms at night. One evening, while preparing for a role in his study, he heard a woman softly humming a tune. Thinking it was someone nearby, he checked the hallway and the entire floor, but he was alone. The humming stopped the moment he stepped outside the room and returned when he went back in. Tom also experienced lights that flickered in strange patterns. Not just quick flashes, more like a series of timed blinks, almost as if the lights were trying to communicate. Electricians found nothing wrong with the wiring. Another strange event involved an antique mirror in the hallway. Guests claimed they saw flashes of movement behind them, but nothing was there. Tom once caught a brief glimpse of a figure in the reflection, even though the hallway behind him was empty. He also found objects moved from their usual places. Books he had stacked neatly would be found on the floor, and his wristwatch once vanished from his nightstand, only to be found hours later on the kitchen counter. One night, he was woken by the sound of soft footsteps outside his bedroom. He opened the door quickly, expecting security, but the hallway was empty and cold. The final event that disturbed him most was a whisper, his name, spoken clearly into his ear while he was alone in the garden. No one else was there. Number 6. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has lived in several historic and luxurious homes, but one of his older estates in California was rumored to be haunted, and he allegedly shared strange occurrences with close friends over the years. One of the earliest incidents began with flickering lights in the hallway, always around midnight. Electricians checked the wiring, but no faults were found. The lights would dim slowly, then flash back to full brightness, as if responding to movement. One night, while reading scripts in his study, he heard soft footsteps behind him. Thinking it was one of his kids or staff, he turned around, but no one was there. The sound continued, pacing back and forth, even though he was completely alone. He also described hearing music, old jazz, playing faintly from the walls. It wasn't from a speaker or device. The tune would grow louder near the main stairwell, then fade as he walked away, only to return the next night. In the kitchen, he once found all the chairs pulled away from the table and facing outward, in perfect formation. Everyone in the house denied moving them, and the surveillance system showed nothing. Brad claimed mirrors in one hallway fogged up with handprint shapes during the night, even in cool weather with no humidity. He wiped them off, but they returned the next morning. In one intense moment, a shadow figure appeared at the foot of his bed. It stood still, tall and silent, and vanished just as he reached for a light. The most disturbing event happened when a cold presence passed through him while he was alone. It froze him in place. He later told a friend it felt like someone had walked straight through his body without ever being seen. He never slept in that room again. Number 7. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage has owned several eerie properties, including the infamous LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans, one of the most haunted houses in America. Not long after moving in, he began to experience unsettling things. The first incident happened late at night when he heard soft weeping from an upstairs room. Thinking someone had broken in, he checked, only to find the room completely empty and cold, with no open windows or doors. Another time, while walking through the mansion's hallway, he saw a flickering candlelight coming from a room that had no electricity. Inside, a single candle was burning on a windowsill. He hadn't placed it there, and no one else was staying in the home. One morning, he woke to find deep scratches on the wooden floor near his bed. They looked like claw marks, rough and uneven. He brought in experts to inspect for pests or animals, but nothing was found. The marks returned twice more. A heavy antique mirror in one of the hallways would tilt slightly each night, even after being repaired and secured. Once, he saw what he believed was a face, distorted and gray, staring back at him from inside the mirror when he passed by. Another night, while reviewing a script in his study, all the books on one shelf suddenly fell to the floor without warning. The shelf was solid, with no vibration or reason for collapse. In the courtyard, he often heard footsteps echoing on the stone path when no one was outside. On one occasion, he followed the sounds, only to find the gate open, even though he always locked it. The final straw came when he felt someone breathing on his neck as he stood alone in the wine cellar. He sold the house not long after. Number 8. Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson has openly spoken about her belief in ghosts and spiritual energy, and she's had several eerie experiences in her home that left her convinced the paranormal was real. One of the first strange incidents happened when she saw a translucent figure standing at the foot of her bed. It wasn't threatening, but it stared silently before fading into the air as she blinked. Another time, while walking down the stairs, she felt an invisible hand gently press against her back. It didn't push hard, but it was enough to make her stop in shock. No one else was around, and the house was silent. In her bathroom, the lights would flicker every time she spoke about the spirit to guests. It became a pattern, as if the entity didn't want to be talked about. Her electrician couldn't find any fault with the wiring. One afternoon, her music system suddenly turned on by itself and played a song from her childhood. The stereo wasn't set to that playlist, and she hadn't used it in days. She felt as though the ghost was trying to connect with a memory. She also reported that her toddler would often wave at the ceiling and smile as if someone were floating above. Kate asked her child who it was, and the response was always, "The glowing lady." Mirrors in the hallway began showing strange smudges that looked like handprints, always at night. She'd clean them, but the marks would reappear by morning. One night, as she meditated in the living room, she felt someone sit beside her on the floor. There was an indentation on the carpet, like knees pressing down, and the air turned freezing cold. She sat still, feeling watched, but strangely, not afraid. Number 9. Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez has mentioned her interest in the paranormal and even hired ghost hunting equipment for fun. But several incidents in her former home made her believe something more serious might be happening. One of the first odd experiences occurred when she heard footsteps pacing her upstairs hallway while she was alone. When she checked, no one was there, but the footsteps continued for a few seconds behind her as if someone was following. One night, while recording music in her home studio, the microphone picked up a soft whisper that wasn't hers. When they played it back, it sounded like someone saying her name faintly. Everyone in the room froze. They tried again, but the voice never repeated. She once found her makeup drawers completely open, with all the items arranged in a perfect line across the bathroom counter. It looked as if someone had been trying to send a message or imitate her routine. In her bedroom, the lights would dim slowly without anyone touching the switch. Once, the lights shut off entirely, and she felt a sudden cold breeze pass across her face, even though the windows were closed. She described seeing a shadowy figure reflected in her TV screen late at night. When she turned around, no one was behind her. The figure was tall and still, and the room felt heavy for hours afterward. Her dog would bark aggressively at a specific corner of the living room every night. When she tried to calm him, he'd hide under the table, shaking and refusing to move. Once, while lying in bed, she felt pressure on the mattress next to her, as if someone had sat down. The feeling was so real she turned to speak, expecting someone there, but the space was completely empty. Number 10. Lily Collins. Lily Collins has expressed a strong belief in the supernatural, and during her time living alone in a historic Los Angeles home, she experienced several unsettling events. One of the first was when she found her kitchen lights flickering every night at exactly 2:13 a.m. No electrical issues were found, and it only happened when she was home alone. One night, while rehearsing lines in her bedroom, she heard someone humming softly behind her. The tune was unfamiliar and old-fashioned. When she turned around, the room was empty, and the sound stopped instantly. She began to notice cold spots in specific parts of the house, especially near an old grandfather clock that came with the property. The clock would chime randomly, even when not wound or plugged in. In her bathroom, the mirror fogged up with strange swirling patterns while she was brushing her teeth, despite there being no steam or hot water. The shapes looked almost like writing, but vanished before she could take a closer look. She also reported her cat behaving oddly. It would hiss at empty corners and once climbed the curtain trying to escape something unseen. Lily said the cat avoided certain rooms entirely. During one late-night meditation session, she felt a sharp chill wrap around her like a breeze, and the candle beside her went out. At the same moment, she felt a firm but invisible touch on her shoulder, causing her to jump. The most frightening moment came when she woke to see the outline of a figure standing near her closet. It didn't move or speak, just stood still for several seconds before fading into the dark. She moved out months later, convinced the house had never truly been empty.